Počela je nedelja ponosa i već se zadesila prva kontroverza u LGBTQ zajednici. Nik JOVČIĆ SAS, koji je diplomirani teolog i aktivista za LGBTQ zajednicu, je trebao da održi radionicu u sklopu nedelje ponosa. Nažalost, zbog određenih medija i pretnji, ta radionica je morala da bude otkazana. On je danas sa nama u studiju i uzimajući obzir da je on odrastao u Ujedinjenom kraljevstvu, ostatak intervjua će se obaviti na engleskom. So, it's Pride Week and the plan was for you to do a workshop. But unfortunately, because of some media outlets, there was a very big negative media storm towards you, which resulted in the cancellation of your workshop. So I want just to ask you, what do you think about this situation?
Well, obviously, it's a very difficult situation. So I am someone who's worked in religion and LGBT rights for over a decade now. My degree is in theology from King's College London. I am a published academic author, and I have spoken at University of Oxford, University of Cambridge. I've spoken at major Orthodox lectures and conferences around the world. I'm due to give a lecture at the at Bristol Cathedral next month. And yeah, so it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And I wanted to share that in Serbia, a country that I'm very connected to. My family is Serbian. I come to Serbia often to see them. It's my favorite thing about coming to Serbia. I'm also from a sort of old Serbian family. I'm from the same family as Borislav Stanković, the author from Vranje. And which makes me a little ashamed my Serbian is not very good. But yes, I really want to talk about this topic for Belgrade Pride. I think it's a really important topic. I actually think we cannot have a real discussion about homophobia in Serbia if we're not talking about religion. I think from the very beginning of kind of conflict between LGBT rights and other factors in Serbian society, religion has been always present and always like a huge issue. For me, a huge moment in my life was watching the first Belgrade Pride in 2001. I was 11 years old at the time, and I was first coming to the realization myself that I was gay. And I grew up Orthodox with a Serbian family, and my family's culture and tradition were so, so important to me. And so to see priests and monks and nuns in the streets shouting "Smrt pederema," to say gay people should be killed, that we're perverts and stuff, it had a huge impact on me watching that, even, you know, on my computer screen in the UK. And I know that's also the case for many other diaspora Serbs, whether you're from the UK or Australia or America or Sweden. I think sometimes people have said, I'm just some random person who's being paid lots of money. I wasn't getting paid any money. This was, maybe I'm stupid for not being paid money. But I wanted to come and give this lecture because I think it's really important. And I think it's not the case that these things happen in Serbia in isolation. They have a huge impact all around the world in Serbian communities. And I wanted to give my expert advice on theology, religion, and LGBT rights to Belgrade Pride because I think it's a very, very important issue.
Given that you are an artist also, on the last Belgrade Pride in 2019, you came with an icon with the halo in rainbow colors. And I just wanted to ask you, what was the inspiration? How was the reaction? And what was your end game with that icon?
Well, rainbows have a very powerful symbology in Orthodox iconography. Within Christian theology, rainbows are a symbol of God's love and protection for humanity. The first rainbow comes after the flood, after Noah and the ark. He lands. God shows a rainbow to show his love and protection for humanity. And even in St. Sava, when you look at the dome on the top, Jesus is sat on a rainbow, which is a symbol of God's love and protection. And so for me, I think there's a very beautiful overlap between the fact that the rainbow is the symbol for the LGBT community, minoritized community who's threatened often with violence, and the fact that this is also a very beautiful Christian symbol, in my opinion. That year, I had also attended the largest conference in the history of the Orthodox Church on the issue of sexuality that happened at the University of Oxford. And there were monks, bishops, priests there from all churches, from the Russian Church, the Greek Church, the American Orthodox Church, Finnish Orthodox Church, everyone. And what was very interesting to me was that in this academic setting, where we weren't allowed to tell anyone specifically who said what, there was like rules about privacy. All these people said very liberal, progressive, understanding things about LGBT rights and the LGBT community. And that made me very frustrated because these people felt that they could come here to the University of Oxford and say these things and go home, and then they could feel like they'd like washed their hands of the violence and the violent speech we see every day, especially here in Serbia. And have a clear conscience. And so I wanted to do something as an Orthodox theologian that was a very visual symbol that you can be Orthodox and you can be LGBT, and that, in my opinion, God is a loving God. God loves all people. He loves LGBT people. I think when you look at the life of Christ, he was always looking to protect people, especially those in difficult positions. And the Bogorodica is, I think, for Orthodox people, a symbol of like the love and the tenderness of God. And so for me, it was like a perfect mixture of the two. Also, there was a woman in Poland who the same year did a similar protest for this very similar reasons, with a very famous Polish icon of the Mother of God. And I thought that was very beautiful. And so I was inspired by her as well.
In one interview, you said that you're a British Serb, and that you faced comments like, go back home. But when you come to Serbia, you don't feel Serbian enough. Do you feel like a correlation between your LGBT identity and the Orthodox part of yourself? Do they clash? How do you find harmony in both? And how people in Serbia should find harmony, that to know that it's okay to be Orthodox and gay or trans, non-binary, everything under the rainbow.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear your opinion.
Yes. Well, I grew up in a very small village in a rural part of the UK in the southwest, and my family were hated for being immigrants. People would shout out the window of their cars when I was going to school. They'd tell us to go back to our own country. Our house was even firebombed. And I think that's in part why my Serbian identity was so important to me, because it was something that was, I was told like I should change, I shouldn't be Serbian or whatever. And also to me, there's something about Serbian culture which is about resistance and about fighting back. And I think I always found that very beautiful. And my kum was always telling me stories of like Serbian history, and I was always very inspired by that. And I felt so close to my Serbian heritage. And yeah, so I remember seeing the people in the Serbian Orthodox Church in 2001, what they said and what they would say for many years, and they still say today, that you basically being Serbian and being LGBT are in opposition to each other. I found that very difficult, very painful. It felt like something that was so precious and so special to me had been stolen away from me. And it was only through actually my work in theology and academia that I realized that they aren't in opposition to each other. There have always been LGBT people in Serbia. There have always been queer people in Serbia. I think you can make an argument to say that this current period in our history is one of the most anti-LGBT moments in Serbian history. There's a scholar called Nik JOVČIĆ who wrote a book recently called A Concise History of Serbia. And in it, he talks about how in Catholic Europe in the Middle Ages, the punishment for sodomy was the death penalty. Whereas in medieval Serbia, it was something that one would talk to the priest about, but it was more an issue of personal confession, which didn't carry the death penalty. You would have to repent in certain instances. So I think people have this very strong anti-LGBT opinion today. And I think a lot of it has to do with it's seen as modern, European, like a form of cultural imperialism from the West. But for me, my LGBT identity is completely intertwined with my Serbian identity. Yeah, I don't see it as a negation of, and I don't think anyone should see it as a negation of. There's always been LGBT Serbs as long as there has been a Serbia.
How do you evaluate the negative comments that are thrown towards the LGBTQ community in Serbia from the Orthodox Church?
Well, before I get onto that, I also just wanted to pick up on something in one of your previous questions, because I didn't answer it. What the response was after the rainbow icon in 2019. During the march itself, people were really enthused about it. People came up to me and said they thought it was very beautiful. And I had some really beautiful discussions with people who were like, I'm Orthodox, and it's very difficult for me because many LGBT people, I think, fairly feel a lot of difficult emotions towards the Orthodox Church because of all the hatred and all those things that happen makes a lot of LGBT people feel suspicious about Orthodox Christianity. And I completely understand that, and I understand completely why they're angry, which makes it sometimes difficult for LGBT people who are Orthodox to find a space in LGBT spaces. So that was very beautiful. The morning after Pride, I had a message from someone involved with Belgrade Pride who found a post on Facebook that was from like a far-right organization, and they'd gone through my Instagram and they'd taken screenshots showing what part of the city I was mainly staying in, and basically that they should find me and they should like get me. And so there was a few days until I had my flight, so I didn't leave my house for several days, and people brought me food and made sure I was okay. I received thousands of death threats. There would just be images of me circulating on Facebook, just with hundreds of comments telling me I should be killed and I should be hung in the main square, or I should be sent to Russia and they'll deal with me, or things like that. The most disturbing thing for me is people were sending me images of gay people who'd been attacked or who had been hung in Middle Eastern countries. And it was extremely psychologically difficult. And then for about 5 years afterwards, I would have problems coming in and out of Serbia. I was sued by many far-right politicians, and I was also sued by the former patriarch, Irene. I would often be kept at the border for over an hour, and people wouldn't tell me what the situation was. I had to be questioned at the police station in Belgrade, and that was also very difficult for me because, as I said, and I'm genuinely, one of my favorite things of coming to Serbia is coming to see my family, and many of my family members are now quite old, and I don't know how long I have to see them. And so every time I'd come to Serbia, I had this fear of what might happen with the police or getting attacked or whatever. But this is my family's home, and I'm not going to be scared or intimidated by that kind of hate.
So I just wanted to touch back because the fire was set by someone in the community, that you were making fun of Christianity, and it just made a snowball effect. And are you getting the same attention now like you did in 2019? Or was it just, let's say, less intense now, but for safety reasons it was cancelled?
I think that a lot of people have these perceptions of me being some random provocateur because of misinformation about me in the media. And I think some of that misinformation is deliberate. And I think that's very sad to see. I think it's very easy to find, if you Google my name, that I am someone who has given many talks, lectures. I have academic qualifications on this subject. And I'm an Orthodox Christian myself. I go to church. I love my faith. I love this country. And I do what I do because I think this is a really important issue to talk about. And I know it's always going to be like a difficult conversation, religion, LGBT in Serbia. And I was trying to do my best to have that conversation because, as I've said, I don't think you can have a conversation about homophobia in Serbia without really looking at religion. But I think sometimes we also have to ask, what do we want from the LGBT rights movement and what do we want from Belgrade Pride? There's a lot of criticism of Belgrade Pride, and I think sometimes that criticism is contradictory. They want Belgrade Pride to be more active, more politically effective, more holding the government more to account. But they also want to make sure Belgrade Pride isn't causing too much of a stir, isn't causing too much drama, isn't whipping up any negative response. I don't think you can have both at the same time perfectly. I think there's things that are unnecessarily provocative. One thing that was upsetting for me was my rainbow icon on my lecture being compared to this person who got their ass out in front of St. Mark's Church. For me, I support people's freedom to express themselves and their feelings about things, but in my opinion, this protest was very distasteful, and I'm a believer myself, and I can't say I was a huge fan of it, and I think that's something that's completely different to what I was doing, and I think it was deliberately dishonest to compare an academic in Orthodox theology giving a talk about or my specialist academic subject to someone who got their ass out in public. But yeah, I think I understand why some people in the LGBT community feel touchy about this. But my experience often, because I've met and had many talks with people, gay or straight, who had a problem with my rainbow icon or some of my work. And honestly, the majority of the time I explain I'm an academic. This is my thing. I'm a member of the Orthodox Church. This is like something that's so important to me. They are like, oh, I had no idea.
Do you think that people should be more educated on the symbolism in the Bible so they can understand more that the rainbow isn't just for the LGBTQ community, but it has a wider symbolism in itself?
Well, I think in Serbia, unfortunately, and actually in the whole world, there's a lot of misrepresentation of what the Bible has to say about LGBT issues. I think some Christians take the Bible and twist it and manipulate it to serve their own goals politically. And I think that's very sad. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this issue, is because to me, Orthodoxy is a faith that's about tradition, and those traditions are passed from generation to generation, and it's a precious and a beautiful inheritance. And for me, I won't allow it to be manipulated and distorted for people's sinister political agendas. To be a Christian, in the most basic sense, means to be a follower of Christ, to live in Christ and follow his example. In the Gospel of John, in John 9, there's a woman who's about to be stoned for adultery. And Jesus stands in front of her to stop her from being stoned. And he says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." If you believe it's a sin to be LGBT, then Jesus has given you there in the gospel, in the Bible, what you should be doing as a Christian. If people threaten LGBT people, you should stop that. You should protect that. This woman had committed a sin in the eyes of the church or the religious authorities at the time, and she was about to be killed. She was threatened with violence, and Jesus protected her. This is a Christian response to violence. I don't believe it's a sin to be gay or LGBT. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that says that. And I think, unfortunately, this has a lot much more to do with the legacy of Western colonialism, Western imperialism, and the spread of homophobic laws and ideas of homosexuality from 19th century psychiatry that spread across the world in the 19th century.
I wanted to ask you also, how do you evaluate the negative comments from the Orthodox Church in Serbia towards the LGBTQ community? And should they, instead of throwing hate towards the community, promote tolerance and love like a religion should?
I think the issue of LGBT rights in Christianity is a complicated issue for many reasons. And I think it has a lot to do with various political agendas that are at play. But in its most simple terms, I think we have to be asking the question, what's the most Christian response to this? If you believe it's a sin to be LGBT, then, well, as I said, Jesus says that you should protect those who have sinned from violence. Jesus says in the Bible, "I came for sinners, I haven't come for the saved." So even if you do believe that it's a sin to be LGBT, I think that is a proper Christian response. But I don't think it is. And I think there's a lot of deliberate misinformation, and you see it in many places in the world. I think at the end of the day, the Orthodox Church has a duty of care to all who seek care from it. And I know that there are many, many LGBT people in Serbia who see themselves as Orthodox Christians, or who even feel a strong cultural connection with the church. And I believe that they should feel safe, and they should be allowed to practice, and they should be able to take part in rituals and ceremonies of the church in the same way that any other Serbian person can if they want to. The church should be a safe space for everyone. And I think it's very sad to see the way that the symbols of church have become symbols of hate in some contexts. One of the reasons I brought my rainbow icon to Belgrade Pride in 2019 was because one of the things I remember most strongly of the Belgrade Pride in 2001 was people coming and holding icons against Belgrade Pride. And they still do that to this day. And to me, holding an image of Jesus or Mary or any of the saints as a symbol of hatred and violence, to me, that's blasphemy. And I think it's sad that that's the state of how people see the church, is as a symbol of violence.
In Serbia and Balkan in general, do you see that the Orthodox religion and LGBTQ community can coexist? Should the community, or people from the community that want to go back to their religion, should they separate the religion from the institution like the church?
I think that we're in a difficult position as LGBT Orthodox Christians. I think even the Catholic Church is more liberal these days on LGBT issues than orthodoxy. But I truly believe that the arguments for inclusion of LGBT people are stronger than the arguments of exclusion. And I think the truth will win in the end. And I think this was the reason this conference in Oxford happened and those people said the things they said, was because they know that to be true. And I don't think these positions of hatred are tenable. So I do think one day that there will be a time where we can find reconciliation. And I think that time is coming faster than people would like to think. But there are those who are trying their hardest to stop that from happening. And I think we need to keep talking about these issues. I think there is a deliberate attempt to stop any discussion from happening. I would love to have a discussion at Belgrade Pride or in Serbia with a homophobic priest or something. Yeah,
sure, let's talk about it. There can be a discussion?
Well, I don't think they want one, because I think when they have their ideas in public and they have it challenged in a sensible theological fashion, I don't think those ideas stand up as correct. I think when people see the ideas laid out, I think people would question whether it's really genuine that the correct Orthodox Christian thing to do is, as Bishop Nicanor said, take a gun and go and shoot Belgrade Pride, you know? I think most Serbian people know that that's not what Christ would do, that's Christianity. And I think they don't want to have that discussion, because I think once they start having that discussion, I think people will start to change their opinion. But I think it's only a matter of time until these ideas and these concepts are challenged.
So do you think that that type of discussion can never be held in Serbia, given the police brutality beginning of this year, the killing of a transgender woman last year, and the police ignoring or perpetuating violence in that way? An institution that should protect its citizens is doing the opposite and giving that one religious institution, one state institution is directly showing intolerance and hate towards towards the LGBTQ community. Do you think that in the near future such discussion can be actually possible?
I read about everything that happened in February, and I have to say I found that so disturbing and so shocking. And I think people who are not LGBT in Serbia need to know about this case. I think there was a real lack of reporting on this case in the wider media. And I think that case shows the way we as LGBT people in Serbia are living our lives. We live with this fear, and it takes a huge toll. Mental health statistics for Serbian LGBT people are shocking. I think that there have been many times in history where LGBT people have been threatened, had their rights taken away from them, and we fought back, and we've won. And I think we live in a scary time like that now. And I don't think I can give you some answer that, well, I think in a few years this will calm down, or this will happen, and then this will happen. I don't think we should be waiting for someone to come save us. I think we have to be our own savior. And it's so scary. The things that Andrei has suffered since his incident, not just his incident, but since his incident, with people calling him all kinds of terrible things online, and the things I've gone through, I can't tell you that it's not something difficult. But I think we have to fight back, because I think it is possible to have a better future. And I think there are things we have today which the generations before us would be overjoyed to see. I think Belgrade has such a beautiful queer community, and I love coming to this city and seeing the expression and the beauty. And I think it's something that all of Serbia can be proud of. And I think, as scary as things can be, there is a possibility for a better future for us, but we have to fight for it.
I wanted to ask you, generally in your art, do you think that what role does it play in overcoming the barrier between religion and LGBTQ? Someone that isn't familiar with your art, how can they understand it better for someone that isn't part of the LGBTQ community? Because I think that your icon is much more familiar with the LGBTQ community than from the straight community. And how do you think that generally art in general and your art should play the role of overcoming those barriers?
Yeah, some people have said to me about this icon being a piece of art. In a way, I don't see it as a piece of art as much of a piece of theology. But I think that's one of the beautiful and interesting things about Orthodox Christianity, is this seamless fusion of art and theology and belief. I think that's what makes the Orthodox Church very beautiful for many people, and many people who don't know about the Orthodox Church when they come to a church for the first time. I take my friends to my church in the UK sometimes, and they are like, wow, it's so beautiful. And I think Orthodoxy has a real focus on the physical world and the beauty of the physical world and the beauty of people. One of my favorite sort of ideas in theology is that all humans are icons of Christ. All, in every person's face, you see something of the divine. And that's the case with LGBT people as well as with all other people. And I think that's something we need to think about more as Orthodox Christians, is that, you know, these are people. And I think so much of this language that we see, unfortunately, is to try and deliberately dehumanize. And much of the propaganda I see online against the LGBT community is trying to distort and twist the facts, when I think we just want to, like, belong and be safe.
Do you think that there's any progress in the rights of the LGBTQ community in Serbia? Or have they stagnated, regressed? Not just comparing to Belgrade Pride 2001, but from then to now, because somehow in the last year or two we see rising far-right movements, not just in Serbia, but all over Europe. And in other places in Europe, LGBTQ rights are a little bit more secure than in Serbia, which they actually do not exist. Their basic human rights somehow don't exist in Serbia because of their identity. And like we have seen with Andrea, with a lot of other a lot of other members of the community are just disregarded in Serbia.
I do lots of talks and lectures in the UK about LGBT rights, and I often say that human rights, people sometimes think it's like iPhones, like every year the model is going to get better and better and better. And unfortunately, I think when you look through history, it swings. There's times where people have more rights and times when people have less rights. And I think all we can do as LGBT people is try and stand our ground when people take our rights away from us. I think we do live in a difficult time for LGBT people, not just in Serbia, but across the world. Even in the UK, we've seen far-right riots, even in where I live in the UK. And I think in the last couple of years in Serbia, we have seen some really scary things. And I think we just have to keep fighting back against it. I think we have seen progress since 2001. and we have seen many great things over those years. I think it's difficult to sometimes take stock of your achievements or how far you've come in the face of so much hate and so much, there's so many terrible things. But I think we have won victories, small victories, and I think there are victories ahead. And I think, unfortunately, we just have to keep fighting back.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Hvala i vama što ste gledali. Ne zaboravite da nas zapratite na svim društvenim mrežama. Vidimo se u sledećem intervjuu.